All right. So we can go ahead and jump in. So thank you everybody for joining us for today's webinar. We are talking tax season. It is here. It is coming up faster than any of us are probably prepared for. And as such, we want to make sure that everybody has a plan in place for how you're going to handle the tax uh, reporting that is going to be coming up in January, and then also your taxes beyond that. So what we've done is we have invited our preferred partners from Avalara. They are a global tax provider who have been partnered with us for quite some time, and they offer a suite of solutions that can really help you not just once per year, but the entire year through. So I encourage everybody to ask questions as we go along. There's a couple of ways you can do that. You can definitely use the chat if you prefer to type your question there. We will either answer it in the chat or answer it verbally. Also, you can feel free to ask questions as we go along. We will also carve out some time at the end for a formal Q&A. But if you have a question about what we're talking about when we're going through it, it's typically best to go ahead and ask it right then. So with that, I am going to introduce Gordon and Elena from Avalara, and I'm going to let them guys take it from here.
Awesome. Thank you, Cassie. Elena,
We're
glad to
here.
see ya.
Glad to see you too. We're talking about taxes, our favorite topic.
1099s and W9s. The world of of those people who work for us but don't really work for us, and better known as the 1099 guy at Avalara. Um, and I'm coming to you live from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I'm joined by my colleague Elena.
And I'm thrilled to be here. Gordon and I have worked together a very long time. I've been in compensation and tax compliance for way too many years, but certainly excited to share with you some of the things we've learned along the way, things that we can do to help make your life easier. And we certainly want to be a resource to you to answer questions because things are changing right before our eyes.
They are. They are. So let's jump in. We'll get into this right now. Um, Here's kind of a quick agenda of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about 1099 compliance and we'll talk about some of the ever-changing requirements around federal, state, and individual requirements. We'll talk about that giant elephant in the room, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and how that has thrown some wrenches into the mix here late in the year and into 2026. We'll give you a good checklist that might help you to kind of just keep track of some of the dates forthcoming. And then we'll jump in and show you a quick demonstration of what Avalara software is and can do and how it could help. And along the way, we'll answer. We've got time. We'll try to make some time at the end for Q&A, but I think both Elena and I, as well as the team from ByDesign, we have our chats open. So if you send us questions throughout, we are happy to jump in and kind of speak to those as we go. So let's jump into it. Let's start with that forgotten workflow. So this, as we look at it, is probably what your head is getting into, where you're starting to kind of get ready for this part of what's in front of us. That is really the month of January, right? And so this is that journey of maybe some of the things that you're doing, hopefully doing, and getting ready for your January filing, right? And it all starts with, do we even need to file a 1099? Looking at the different elements of who this person or company is. Do they meet the requirements to even be issued a 1099, or if we're going international, a 1042S? And going through that. And that might be some involvement of looking at some other resources, also looking at data in our ERP, keeping track of all the different elements from a W-9. And once we've established that, then we're going state by state, because yes, every state has its own requirements for filing. Except for, those, thank you, Alaska, Texas, those of you who don't require us to do anything in those states. That's helpful. But otherwise, you're doing the research, you're getting ready to figure out, do I need to file in these states? Once you've now got that list, right? I know who I need to file for, which states are involved. I'm going to go and take all that data from my W-9, from my ERP, all my numbers, and I'm going to get it onto an actual 1099 or 1042-S so I can get ready to file. Once those are ready, then we can finally go and file, whether that's through a third party or direct to fire or whatever it is, but we're filing with the IRS and each state directly along the way. And now, whew, we're done. No, we know better than that because now we have that other side of the other side of the equation where we need to then print stuff. Lick, man, my tongue is tired. Stamp and mail out the recipient copies, furnish those copies to all of our recipients, and we need to make sure we do that. It says January 31st because we're just kind of claiming that across the board, but obviously this year, if you're paying attention to dates, it will be February 2nd since the 31st is a weekend. And that's kind of the end of the process, or so we hope. But this game of 1099s that the IRS looks at as a gift to businesses is really comes back to us. There's that feedback back loop of if anybody made a mistake in any way, knowing or unknowingly along the way, it all comes back to us. And now we have to deal with those B notices or the return to sender mail or all of the other potential penalties and things that come along with it, right? So this is kind of our known workflow that we're all getting our heads ready for. But there's a whole nother side of this. There's what we would consider the forgotten workflow. And these are really the first few steps of doing a 1099 in the W-9, right? And so if we back up and we look at it and we go from the moment we meet a new seller, a new vendor, somebody that may require one of these 1099s, well, it starts with onboarding and gathering a W-8 or a W-9 from them because that directly is what impacts and informs our 1099. So we would need to gather that. We're requesting it. Once we get it, we got to double check that bad boy. It's not just as simple as now I've got it and I'm good. No, 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 no. Do they have terrible handwriting? Can you read their W-9? I don't know, but I was a high school teacher for over a decade. And I said high school, not elementary. Elementary school teachers are known to have great handwriting. High school teachers, terrible handwriting. So I have terrible handwriting. I can't read my own handwriting half the time. So now you got to check, is it legible? Is everything there? Is it complete? Did they give me all of the required things? Did they overdo it? Is that the right amount of information? And then if it is, we're going to the IRS and we're creating a login to be able to validate their tax ID number. We will preach till the day our last breath is in us that TIN matching is the single most powerful tool in all of the land of 1099. It's how you limit your liabilities, but hopefully you're TIN matching and making sure that that data is going to be good with the IRS when you submit it. And if any of that is off, go back to step one, right? Now we have to go and request that new form from the seller and start back over. Once we do have solid, good stuff, we're going to go and store that, hopefully, in a very secure, centralized location. If not, we'll tell you more about that. Hopefully, it's not just a stack on your desk, but we've got somewhere secure we feel good about. And now that we can click back into our 1099 compliant workflow, where we're then trying to take that data to figure out who gets a 1099 and who doesn't. Man, it felt easy until I went through that. I'm so sorry if I just ruined your day with all the extra steps.
Gordon, you get pretty excited about this, but I bet a lot of folks on the phone look at this and think, holy cow, my life is really hard.
It's a lot of I think a lot of people think about 1099s as just this January thing that like I don't want to deal with it till January and I don't need to. But it's there's a lot more to it. And it's not so much that it's not a January thing, but it's that all of the little things that we don't necessarily associate, the B notices, the penalties, the letters from the IRS, the phone calls, hey, I need another copy of my 1099, all of those things, they are all preventable. They all come back around and go, it could be very easy. It doesn't have to be a pain, right? So let's look back at this. Let's take a step backwards and go, well, all right, I get it. I need a W-9 to do my 1099. Thank you for scaring me with all those steps along the way that maybe or maybe not I'm doing. But why? Let's look at a little bit of that relationship. Why does great 1099 compliance begin with great W-9 collection? Well, there's an interesting history and relationship between W-9s and 1099s, right? Let's look at a couple of those things. One, W-9s are collected at the point of onboarding, right? When we onboard a new seller, that's when we collect that W-9. But 1099s are done once a year in January. And so because of that timing difference, a lot of people will create a separation in their mind, right? And that creates disparate processes where we do things very separately across the board, right? So we have this distance between these two. A lot of times, W-9 is seen as a procurement function. It's all about how we categorize this. W-9, onboarding, procurement. 1099, taxes, accounting. Because they're seen as these different functions, again, we start maybe even going as far as different softwares or different departments within our business handle this aspect of it. It's different technologies, it's different methods, right? So we create, again, more separation. A lot of times our seller relationships aren't necessarily, it's not like an employee where we see them every day in the office or we're paying them on a weekly, bi-weekly, once a month payroll. Maybe they're there for a minute and they're gone the next. Maybe we do one transaction and then they're gone. And because of that, sometimes it can be tough to have motivation to kind of build a formal ongoing process. If we look at the solutions around things, legacy software and accounting software has been intended for bookkeeping, keeping track of the payments, the transactions, but it's not always been about seller onboarding. It's not been about collecting all the documentation to get somebody who's not your employee onboarded. And again, creating further separation. And this one I think is really interesting. Really interesting. The IRS tells us, here's what you need. You need a W-9 for every non-employee you make payment to. And you need to file accurate 1099s to those who need one. But they never mandate how. How do I collect a W-9? How do I file a 1099? Do you remember, Elena, just 2 short years ago, they told us how we had to file if we had 10 or more information returns, right? We had to go to e-filing.
Mhm.
And was that any fun? Holy cow, that was quite a debacle. All the people who all of a sudden went from paper filing to e-filing purely because the IRS told us how.
Well, the IRS, my favorite 2 words to describe them are vague and ambiguous. And yet we are responsible for staying compliant. And I think most people want to be compliant. I will tell you, Gordon, that in the last 90 days, I've had 3 clients that I've talked to who have been through W-9 audits. Those are on the uprise. I never used to hear about them. I heard about 1099 audits, but the IRS has started to figure out where the gaps are. And, I think sometimes in the direct selling space, you guys get picked on a little bit. IRS is looking for reasons for you to not be correct. So think about W-9 processes. I worry that that will be the next big thing that you're going to have to be responsible for insulating yourself from liability.
Yeah, death by a thousand cuts, right? You probably aren't
Yep.
going to see, oh, I didn't grab the right W-9s from everybody, and but it's $60 for a fine here, and $60 there, and $60 there, and it adds up. It adds up. So obviously we talked about why there's maybe some separation, but if we don't pay attention to this, all the things that could go wrong, right? Um, Sometimes if we don't have all of the right data on a W-9, well, again, if you think about it, a W-9, practically every part of a W-9 just directly transitions onto a 1099. So if it's wrong on a W-9, it's going to be wrong on a 1099. And if you file a 1099 that's wrong, now the IRS comes after you. You're the one who has to deal with it. So that's the W-9 and getting it right at that point is a big deal. It's also one of those things where if we're not centralizing and standardizing the W-9 collection process, if that's not a process that is clear in our systems and in our minds, well, now we might accidentally get multiples, or we maybe get the same tax ID with different names, or any combination of things. And again, that leads to all kinds of problems where maybe we've got duplicates or we miss 1099s we should have filed. So it creates, again, more confusion. And if you don't collect a W-9, if you hear nothing else from Elena and I today, make sure that you go out and your new process is collect a W-9 for every time you make a payment to somebody who's not your employee. Doesn't matter what size of business they are, who they are, what they are, collect a W-9. Even if it's not going to result in a 1099. That's the simplest thing you do. And some people don't always collect a W-9 from everybody. They assume, well, they're a corporation and I don't need one. Well, the only document that establishes they're a corporation, a W-9. So again, therein lies your W-9 audit. Not collecting from everybody is what the IRS calls intentional disregard. Whew. That is one, it doesn't feel good. I don't want to be told I intentionally disregarded something. But two, fines for being late or being off on something usually start around $60 with the IRS per instance. Intentional disregard starts at $660 and goes up with no limit or cap. So that gets scary quick. And if we don't have a good system for doing this, we don't have an audit trail. And again, Elena can tell you this. Anyone who's been through an audit with the IRS can tell you receipts, receipts, receipts. The paper trail is the key. And without a paper trail, an audit gets unbelievably harder. If you have a receipt and paperwork and a trail for everything, your life gets a lot easier. Doesn't mean it's quick, but that audit gets a lot easier, right? And again, interesting one here. If we don't have all this taken care of at the moment we onboard, well, then when do we find out that it's a problem? Typically, feeding into this time of year when we're getting ready for January, we're looking through and going, oh, I don't have a W-9, or this doesn't tin match, and now we're in the crunch. We're in the thick of it because we have a very small window in January to file all this. We didn't realize this was a problem until January, and now we're chasing after these people saying, can I get a W-9? Can I get this fixed? And they're busy too, personally and professionally. January is usually a pretty busy month for the world. So that creates, potential conflict and damage to relationships that is hard to undo, right? So what's the solution? Well, let's get all of those systems. Let's get rid of the space between W-9 and 1099, connect those dots into an automated year-round process, right? Let's not think about them as two disparate things anymore. Let's talk about how doing it right at the point of onboarding, at the moment you meet a new seller, before payment has exchanged hands, we fix that, right? And so some of those things that Avalara does and that we would highly suggest, things like real-time W-9 collection. Build it into your onboarding process. Have W-9 collection be a non-negotiable when you onboard somebody new, when you're gathering their name and their address. We'll get the W-9 done too. And tin match right then and there. Not always something that's automated, but if you use a tool, again, Avalara, we can show you that. Automate that tin matching. Do it then so that you know if there's a potential problem with the IRS accepting their data or not. Tin match. Know that that individual or that company's data, their information will be accepted when you file a 1099 by the IRS. And if it doesn't match at the moment before you've ever paid them, stop there. Make that again a non-negotiable point. Hey, we need to get this fixed. We need to get this matched because otherwise you become liable, right? And we want to take that liability off.
Hey, Gordon, can I ask a
Yeah,
quick question?
absolutely.
So, one of the things that we see a lot with our clients is that they really try to make the enrollment process as streamlined as possible. And one of the ways that we have really accommodated that and supported that is by doing a delayed capture of the tax ID information. So
Mm-hmm.
on the actual enrollment, when a rep is signing up, we don't necessarily the client may not require that tax information up front, but as soon as they earn a commission and would then qualify for that 1099, they will basically hold the commissions until they get that information from the rep
Yep.
before they pay it out. What are your thoughts on that? Is that a good solution? Are there pros and cons to doing that?
Yeah, super common, and a great way to do it, right? Because you don't want to. That's always key. I mean, I'm sure there are a bunch of studies by all kinds of companies and consulting and things that say the smallest amount of time between moment we open the website or the app to the moment we can get selling or working on it, that time, the smallest it can be, the better off we are, right? So we don't want to put extra obstacles. That is super common with our clients, super common in the industry. Um, a, a great way to do it. And I think it is exactly like you said. It's creating automation, right? Using
Hmm.
your systems to go, okay, I've paid you, right, here and there, but now, boom, locked. Let's
Hmm.
create that automation and that process flow that says you've hit a certain threshold or you're about to. I like that better.
Before they hit it. Yeah.
Before, right? Like, if it's well, we got some talking to do here, but well, let's assume a $600 threshold right now. If it's 600 at 500 or at 550, locked, right?
Hmm.
Until now, you can't, you're not going to be able to withdraw funds. You're not going to be able to make more happen. And our, best case, next time they log in, there's a pop-up that says your account has now qualified. Hey, here's some automation. Let's get this W-9 piece done. And as soon as it does, boom, we're on. You can withdraw your funds, you can move on, you can do more, right? And I think that's a great way because it's like dangling the carrot. We got you in, we didn't slow you down. Now there's compensation. You've done something, you've made money, but here's one more quick thing we just need you to do. And it's not like it's not hard, especially
Hmm.
again if you use a great tool. It's not hard. It's just now we're all protecting ourselves, right? We're putting in
Perfect.
those
Okay.
those layers of compliance.
Thanks
Yeah.
for that.
Absolutely. And I think that speaks to that last point is using APIs, right? Using systems that create better automation and building this in. We'll show you what that can look like here coming up. So we talk about the first part. W-9 collection is where good 1099 compliance starts, but great compliance for 1099s ends with all the things we need to deal with from all three levels: the federal government, the state government, and our recipients. I hate to say it, but we all know it's true. They're a lot of work, aren't they? They make the business go round, but man, they also are the ones who have the problems, aren't they? There's a lot of things we can do, though, to help. So let's start on the front end, the IRS, the federal stuff. There's a lot of moving targets. They're always making changes, and man, they are not slowing down anytime soon. I've got a whole bunch of stuff on here, different examples from everywhere from the creation of one of the most populous forms we use today, the 1099 NEC back in 2020. If you've been doing 1099 since then, you remember that great debacle that happened then. We already talked about it, right? 2 years ago, 2023, we had the information return threshold drop to 10 forms. It was hundreds, so now you had to e-file. This year, first time ever, the 1099 DA for anybody doing crypto, Bitcoin, all of the brokerages doing digital assets will have to have that in place. And then we've had the ongoing saga that is the 1099K. Whew, that has been quite a wild ride. $20,000 in 200 transactions, and then it was dropping, right? And we had $5,000 in no transaction limit last year. Supposed to be $2,500 this year and $600 next year. That's all changed now. And I will talk about that to be continued, right? So there's just been a ton of changes. It's a lot to keep up with and to know what's happening. So I'll make a little joke on screen there, right? Nothing new has happened recently. That's the end of the story. No, it's not. Stay tuned. If you are gonna jump off, or if you need to go to the bathroom, go quick right now. Come back because the good stuff is coming. How about the states? Oh, 50 states plus the District of Columbia, plus if you get into Puerto Rico and Canada and surrounding countries, it's everybody has their own rules. And it's not the same. Just because you file federally does not mean that the state rules follow that. The thresholds might be different. The deadlines might be different. Who you have to file with, who you don't have to file with. Every state has their own rules and you have to keep up with. And it doesn't help that the states and the IRS don't talk enough. They don't. So, do you know which states you need to file in, right? As you're collecting W-9s, you're looking at every state on those W-9s and going, that's a new state. we now have obligation in that. We need to research that state and go, is there an obligation for us to do additional filing in that state? And then above and beyond that, which ones do you need to do what in? Right? Because the IRS did create this awesome, helpful system called the Combined Federal and State Filing Program. That is where, when we file with the IRS then takes that data and files it with the applicable states for us. Man, is that helpful. Unfortunately, the IRS does it in their way. And that means semi kind of half-baked reporting, and it takes a very long time. So a lot of states participate, but a lot of states don't participate. So you need to know which one is which. And then even of the ones that are dotted on the screen and do participate, some of them still require additional filing direct to the state outside of CFS. So there's like 7 layers of rules that you have to track for every state, and who knows, each and every year they could change, right? So keeping up with this is another headache. And then on top of that, we've got the recipients, the sellers, the reps. It's not like they call you every month of the year saying, I lost my, you never sent me a 1099. Could you send me another one? Send it to me for the very first time, right? There's all these things that they've got, whether it's they change something and they didn't tell you. Isn't that the best? They start an account, they move, you mail it, and you get returned to sender, and then they're like, why didn't you send me a 1099? Why did you move and not tell me what your new address was? Maybe they start selling enough, they start doing well, and they go from being a sole proprietor and they reincorporate. And now they have a new tax ID, and you have to issue 2 1099s that year, one for their sole proprietor and one for their business once they've done that, right? And they don't necessarily tell you that. Or if they have that bad handwriting, or it's so many elements to keep them happy again, because you're the middleman. You got to get the IRS involved, you got to get the recipients involved, right? So do we even know which ones require a 1099? Do we know where we're sending them? Do we know what we're doing? And on top of all that, it could be easier. Do I have consent to e-deliver? Do you know that? You don't have to mail these anymore. It's 2025. Let's just email them, or better yet, make them available within your solution in a portal that they can come into and download that form, right? But if you're going to do that electronically, you have to gain consent to do so. Do you have that consent? Do you know how to get that consent? Is that all taken care of, right? So again, a lot of moving pieces, federally, state, recipients, and unfortunately, ignorance of these rules is a total liability, right? The IRS is never going to give you an award for doing it right. There are no trophies, there are no prizes, there are no high fives, no hugs, nothing. But if you get one thing wrong, even if you didn't know better, they're coming after you, right? And so, again, how can you solve all these problems? Well, you don't have to worry about it if you have automation, right? If you have automation. So again, there are tons of tools. And again, Elena and I will show you what Avalara can do to help, where we help keep track of all the federal rules. We employ people. Their job is to keep track of this stuff. Their job is to listen to what the IRS is telling us and then tell us, and then we build it into the software. So it's all automated. So you don't have to know every rule, because we'll help keep track of it for you. Or states. As soon as a W-9 comes in and we know where that address is, triggers it in our system. We now know which rule, every state's rules, every filing timeline and threshold and requirement, and it's built in. And that way we can automate and just give you a quick, easy list. These are where things need to go, and we'll just do it for you. And then at an individual level, again, all the little things, having quick access to be able to say, hey, I can click 2 buttons and resend a 1099, or I can pull a completed 1099 into my system to make it available, or I can collect that consent to allow somebody to opt in or opt out of that e-delivery, so I can cut down on my costs, cut down on my headache, cut down on those physical mailings, right? Make my life easier. So there's, again, it's a lot of connect those dots between W-9 and 1099, but you need the right tools to do it, right? And a tool will go a long way. Now, I'm going to jump out of the tool for a second and just make sure, Elena, we covered everything, right? That's all we needed to talk about today.
Nothing else to talk about.
Maybe not quite,
Except,
except that big, beautiful elephant in the room, the one big, beautiful bill. That did have some things that changed in the world of 1099. I'm going to just reference three, two of which are worth talking about for our purposes. One we'll just kind of highlight quick. And those things are, this is the final year for FIRE. That is the name of the system we've always, for the last several decades, been able to file through the IRS. The IRS calls the system FIRE that we file through. Well, FIRE is being sunset, right? RIP, FIRE. This is the final January for it. Next year, it will be usurped by its younger sibling, Iris. And there's some things to know and some things that are going to change that will affect us. This is the one that we don't need to talk too much about, but it'll be helpful to know. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act created a whole new form called a 1098 VLI, Vehicle Loan Interest. There is a new form, and it maybe doesn't affect you unless any of you here, service vehicle loans, but it could affect you as an individual. And then the last one, thresholds are a changing. Three of the most used Form 1099s in all of 1099. Actually, I think they're number 2, number 3, and number 4. The 1099B is the number 1 most populous form, but after the B, it's the NEC, the MISC, and the K. And these 3 forms are all seeing threshold changes going forward. So let's dig in and talk about these. The first is FIRE going away. FIRE is going away, which again, if you're probably not a big deal. If you file direct to FIRE, well, you got to get a new TCC code. You got to get new stuff. You got to file using XML, and you got to do some testing ahead of time. It's a little bit of work. If you use a third party, not so bad. But here's what's some of the things that I don't think even we know about yet. Nobody knows yet because there's some ripple effects that could be big, right? And that is that little things like Iris. Iris is 2 name boxes. FIRE has always been 1. Seems like it's not a big deal, but you tell me. What are all your systems? Do all of your systems keep track of these people in a single box or in 2 boxes? Because if it's in a single, well, all of a sudden now we have this potential new change that it's going to have to be broken into 2. And does that mean the W-9 format changes? Well, there's already a W-9, a new draft of a W-9 that's circulating. You can Google it and find it on the IRS. Most people in the industry are speculating that we will see the debut of a brand new W-9 format in 2026. And then on top of that, does that mean that the 1099 is going to look different? I mean, it's not hard if it's John Smith. I can probably figure out which one goes in box 1 and which one goes in box 2, but multi-level name, several names with hyphens and things. Who knows, right? So this change to Iris has some potential ramifications that are going to, all the federal stuff that I talked about having to keep up. It could have all kinds of ramifications that even the IRS doesn't know about until it all comes to fruition here in the next 12 to 18 months. So a lot to keep up with. Again, having a good partner is a good place to start so that they can help keep you informed on all these things, right? As I said before, there is the new 1098 VLI. It was supposed to go into effect for 2025. It got delayed. It's getting pushed to 2026. We just found out about that less than a month ago. And this isn't as important if you obviously service vehicle loans. Well, then you're going to have to issue these. If you don't, well, it may affect you if you own a vehicle or you have a loan on a vehicle, as millions and millions of Americans do. This is just like getting a 1098 if you own a home and you pay a mortgage. You get that 1098 each year with the interest payment information on it, so you can do your own taxes. Now you should probably, if you own a car or you are paying a loan on a car, you should be looking for a new one of these starting next year. And then our last one. Whew, this is a big one. Thresholds are changing. The 1099K, as we had been talking about, it was set to be down to $2,500 with 0 threshold or 0 transaction threshold and $600 next year. That has been repealed. And that takes effect immediately this year. So if you file 1099Ks, This year, you are back up to $20,000 and 200 transactions as your threshold for whether you need to are required to file a 1099K for someone. That takes effect immediately for this upcoming filing season.
Gordon, maybe clarify that the 1099K is the payment processor's responsibility, generally not the payer.
Yes, whoever a 1099K is typically is when there's a payment processor, so the kind of the middle man. If money is generated here, so we'll say with you, and then you take that money and give it to a payment processor who then takes it and feeds it to the recipient of those funds. That money mover in the middle, is the one who would be responsible for issuing the 1099K. Whoever does the delivery of the funds to the seller or the rep, that is who would issue that would be a 1099K. If you directly move funds from you to the seller, you would be responsible for the 1099, but at that point it wouldn't be a K.
And let me offer one caveat. There are different classifications amongst the payers based on how they hold money. So confirm that with your payment processor. Simply ask them, are you responsible to do the 1099K for the payments you process for me? They'll be able to interpret that for you. So even though you may feel like you're giving it to someone else to initiate the payment, depending on how they hold the funds, they may or may not meet a category that requires them to do the K. If they're not doing the K, you're responsible to do the NEC.
Yep. And that is a great bridge into the thresholds are changing for the NEC as well. For as long as 1099 has been in existence, it's been $600, that threshold. Isn't that wild? For a very long time, even with inflation and the value of the dollar changing wildly, it's always been $600 for the 1099 miscellaneous and in its 5-year history, the NEC. That is finally changing starting in tax year 2026. So this year, still on the hook at 600. But going forward in 2026 for January, when you file in January 2027, the threshold for the NEC and the miscellaneous is going up to $2,000. Up to 2,000, but it doesn't just stop there. No, no, no. It will then, from 2027 onwards, it will be adjusted for inflation. So it won't
Would
just
you,
be 2000. It could change. It'll be a lot like Social Security, where it changes based on inflation every so often, and we have to wait for the IRS to tell us what that new number is each and every year.
you know when that statute was written 30 years ago, they simply forgot to add that it was subject to inflation. And so for
Not
30
wild.
years, they haven't been able to change the amount. One big beautiful bill, what it did is it added that they could now index for inflation. So what that means is every year we're going to start seeing changes now.
Yep.
Thank you, one
Yep.
big beautiful bill.
It just, I mean, it's a good thing, I suppose, right? It means fewer 1099s have to issue for all of you, but it's more stuff to keep up with, more automation that could help. But if you don't have that,
Well,
makes it
that's
complicated.
why you have ByDesign as a partner to keep up on all your automation needs, and that just created a little bit more job security for them.
Love it. So again, how do we sum this up? Well, we would tell you to use your tools, right? For a very, very long time, there wasn't always tools in place to help. And the reality is this is complicated. There's a lot of moving pieces. But if you have the right tools, like a partner in Avalara and ByDesign, this can all be automated. From the moment you want to collect that W-9 data, to matching and auto validation, to secure and safe storage, and then automation around federal and state filings, delivery to recipients, and handling all of the what if scenarios that come up around the clock. I'm going to switch this to your checklist for tax year 2025. This is a great screen to screenshot or snip if you have that availability on your computer right now. Lots of dates, some very fast approaching, around when it's suggested to get things ready to go. you'll notice that there are asterisks and double asterisks, and those are some of those things directly that if you're working with Avalara, those are all things you can either skip or don't have to worry about at all anymore because, again, I think I've said it probably only one other time, but automation. All right, just kidding. That was like the 47th time. But automation is key. So I will leave this up. I'm gonna pause this so that it stays up, and that way I can switch my screen on the background here and get into my instance to show you what Avalara's software looks like. Sorry, lots of security. Have to get all the, even though all the data in here is fake, I made all of it up. You're gonna see quickly all my cheesy account names and things, but we still authenticate everything. All right, everybody got their screenshot taken care of. Let's get back into it. So, in Avalara, again, an end-to-end solution where you can gather W-9s, validate W-9s, and file all your 1099s. It could be as simple as using our system on the front end to come in and request your W-9s or your W-8s with a vendor's name. We say vendor, seller, rep, whatever you call them, that individual that is not an employee. Their email address and clicking send, which would send an automated email to them to fill out a W-9. Maybe though, as Cassie, we just talked about a little bit ago, there's some automation, right? We get to the point of we hit a threshold or we're right before a threshold and we want to queue some automation to pop up within our system so that they can't move forward. Well, we have that built in. So again, inside your system, imagine this being yours. I would assume yours looks better than mine. We threw this together quick and need to probably make it a little prettier. But now when we get to that, we just have a pop-up and we trigger with a button that says, hey, we need you to fill out a W-9. And when we do that, right there, embedded into the system and completely white labeled, is that availability for them to fill out their form and not upload a PDF. Because now it doesn't help if they upload a W-9 that's misfilled out, underfilled out, overfilled out, or it's handwritten, you can't read it. Doesn't change the fact that now you got to spend time going back and forth. No, we use smart forms, and that way you don't have to try to decipher bad handwriting. You don't have to have a misfilled out form. We'll format it as we go. We'll help them to pick the right or simplify their process for choosing their tax classifications. We will grab their address, their email, their tax ID, where we require it to be only 9 digits. And we only allow them to give us a social security number or an EIN. Again, simplifying this for you. Have them certify and then grab a live signature, which is all mobile friendly. We'll help you to gather that consent I talked about earlier to e-deliver a 1099 so that if you want, you can either have Avalara email it in January or use our APIs to pull the PDF straight out of our system and into your portal so they can download it in like a tax form section. And then when they click sign and close, and this is maybe the most important part, they can, where's my screen? Hang on. They will get a live TIN match. A live TIN match. So if it doesn't match, we're going to let them know, hey, the tax ID and name you provided do not match. We want you to revise your form. So they can come back, revise the form, and resubmit it to us a few more times to get it matched. So now you're getting an amazing starting point where all of your W-9s are already filled in correctly. You have signatures, you have e-delivery consent, and now you know that they're TIN matched. All of that lives in our dashboards where we can simply see all of the data. Will help tell you whether you even need to issue a 1099, allow you to resubmit and download the PDFs of the W-9s, and even better yet, again, automations push each piece of this into your system via API, right? When we want to know, hey, I want to have that happen, but I don't want to have to log into Avalara every day. Don't. Check into your own system because you can API when that W-9 comes in. We'll push that data to you, including did it TIN match or not, so that you can create a process flow, a reaction within your system. It doesn't match? Fine. Have a box now pop up and say, hey, user, this didn't match. We got to remediate. Here's the next steps in the process. Here's what you do now. Or it does match. Great. Release your funds, right? You can use our automation to trigger your automation to make it a smooth and great experience for those reps and those sellers. When it comes time to do your 1099s come January, you can simply transfer all of this TIN matched IRS validated W-9 data straight in onto the 1099s. From a 1099 standpoint, we make it very easy to import the numbers data from any number of systems or via API. We give you audit level checks here to make sure that all of the data looks right and will be accepted by the IRS as you file. We give you timelines and allow you the flexibility of picking, do I want to file it middle of the month, partway through the month, end of the month? When do I want e-delivery emails to go out? We'll verify addresses through the United States Postal Service. We'll do year-end TIN matching to make sure that changes haven't been made. And we can do all of the delivery from mailing to, again, e-delivery for you. And then when things, and I say when because it's rarely if, but when things come back and we need to see what's going on, we'll tell you everything from when the mail got delivered to when the recipients downloaded their forms to what's going on with the IRS or the states. And if we don't catch something until after it's been filed, we'll help you do your corrections for free. So again, an end-to-end one place to be able to do it all. And again, automation is our key, making everything just flow a little bit easier. So we just did that. That wraps up most of what we've got to share with you. We've given you kind of a high level about the importance of W-9 collection and connecting the dots to the 1099 and that workflow. We talked about some of the considerations to make and why it's important to have those things in place and some of those changes that recently came up in the One Big Beautiful Bill and kind of showed you a high level of what it could look like using automation through Avalara. I know some questions have come in. I think, Alana, you've been answering those live as those have come in, but obviously this would be a great time if there are any other questions that either you want to chat or come off of mute and ask. We are here to help and answer anything we can.
And while we're opening it up, I also just wanted to let everybody know, as a ByDesign client, there's a lot of that data transfer to Avalara that can be automated on your behalf. So that's a part of the benefit that we have as preferred partners. And we've actually been working with the Avalara team recently on ways that we can even increase that automation, make it even simpler for you guys, and even empower your reps with some tools to be able to manage this directly from their back office. So over the next 6 to 12 months, you're going to see even more integration come into play here. Yeah, just wanted to make sure everybody knew that we had that existing integration, and I certainly wouldn't want to have to manage all of this on my own. So I appreciate that there are people out there that love it as much as Gordon clearly loves it, and can handle all those details for us.
Someone's got to be passionate about it, Cassie. And there's not a
That
lot
is
of
your
other
calling.
people raise their hand, so
That is
I'll
your
own it.
calling, Gordon.
Yeah.
For those of you listening in, I hope you'll walk away with a couple takeaways. Number one, W-9s matter. Number two, automation is the key to you guys as you interpret, again, the vagueness and ambiguousness of the IRS. Have a process. Process will do so much to keep you out of trouble. However you interpret it and however you decide to, collect W-9 at the beginning, collect them as they're approaching the threshold, whatever you decide is right for you, have a process and let the ByDesign team build that into automation, because then you consistently follow your process. That will go a long way towards eliminating that intentional intent that can get you into a heck of a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
All right. And if anybody is curious about Avalara and would like to discuss any questions about your specific scenarios, I know the team is available. So Elena, I think where we landed was they could reach out to me and I can connect them with you.
Yep.
That way, we get you in front of the right person to answer any of your questions, or even if you don't have questions and you've just decided, hey, I would really like somebody to handle this for me so that I don't have to, I can help with that too. So reach out to me, reach out to the support team, and we will definitely get you in touch with the Avalara team for next steps. All right, guys. Well, we are at the end of our hour. I've checked the chat. I think we've answered all of the questions. So I just want to thank the Avalara team for all the great information. I genuinely learned so much from this call. So I thank you for that. And I'm sure that those that were here live and anybody watching on the replay is going to learn a lot as well. So thank you guys for making the time. Thank you for being such great partners. And with that, we will go ahead and wrap up and see everybody next month. All right.
Thank
Thanks, guys.
you.
Thanks.